Okay, good.
Okay, welcome to this regular board meeting, the Webster Groves School District. We are trying this in person this evening. We're going to sort of see how this works. Decision following this as to whether we think this is more efficient or whether we will revert back to Zoom, but we'll do that at a later stage. So obviously one requirement of the board meeting in person, everyone is required to wear masks the entire time they are in the building. So I hope everybody can hear us. I'll start off. Has everybody had a chance to review the agenda? And if so, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Any questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, that passes. Okay, we have an opportunity for public comment in person. If anybody has any public comments, I'd welcome them. Please wear a mask. Please come up to the microphone. Okay, it doesn't look like we have anybody who wishes to make a public comment at this point. And I would draw the board's attention again to the public comments that are in the in the agenda packet as well. So we do also have public comments and then the correspondence log as well. Okay, in that case, we'll move on then to communications, recognitions, and information, and the initial review of board policies.
Yeah. So in your packet, you have a few policies that were moved forward by the board policy subcommittee. That includes a number of people in this room, Joe, Keita, as well as Amy. And so this is your opportunity for a first read. If you have any questions, you can ask us now or later. We will give tonight a presentation and update on the anti-bias, anti-racism policy. It will be on, these policies will be on the next agenda for approval.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have the MSBA P-card rebate.
Yes, I'm going to ask Ms. Frazier to come forward and share.
So the district is a part of the MSBA purchasing card program. The card is actually issued through BMO Harris Bank. And by using that card, they send us a rebate on a portion of our purchases. And this year we received $2,056.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do you need a resolution for us to approve accepting that at all? Okay, good. Thank you very much. Next item is board candidate filing. So there will be two 3-year positions available. Anybody interested in running? Filing begins at December 15th at 8 a.m. and goes through January 19th at 5 p.m. However, you can't file on days if the office is closed for inclement weather, and you can't file on days when the office is closed for winter break or on Martin Luther King Day. So typically at this point, we would ask, we have 2 incumbents, and we would ask them if they are interested in making a public statement as to their intention to run for re-election or not. So, so Keita.
Yes, I do intend to run for re-election.
Okay, that's great. That's good to hear. And Christine?
Yes, it is also my intention to run again.
Okay, good. So we have those 2, and I say anybody else who wishes to run, filing state again, it opens on the 15th. And the practice these days is as long as you register on the 15th, you don't have to be the first one there to be top of the ballot. There will be a random draw of everybody who files on the 15th as to the position that you appear on the ballot. After that, it depends. You'll be in the order that you register. Okay, board calendar.
That's just an updated calendar. Nothing new to report there. No changes.
Okay. I've already made mention of the public comments, and I've made mention also of the correspondence log. Reports from the superintendent and staff.
Great. I'm going to invite Dr. Mays to the podium. Dr. Mays is here along with Dr. Vogt, Mr. Hazelton, our amazing administrative team at Hickson Middle School. And they have been very thoughtfully engaged with a lot of the teachers and others engaged in the merger of Steger and Hickson, which will begin next year, which is super exciting. They're doing a lot of great work, and Dr. Mays is here to share about it tonight. She's the first one to go through the how to present, so. Nailed it.
Okay, here we go. Can everyone hear me okay? Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Shanita Mays. I am the head principal of Hickson Middle School. I am here this evening to provide some updates from the Transition Task Force, which is a group of teachers, counselors, working together to facilitate.
You can take it off if you want, Shanita.
You want to move it closer?
Yeah, just move on.
You can lift it if you want.
You're plenty loud.
Oh, okay, the microphone's on. But anyway, to facilitate a successful merger of the two schools. And so this is a work group that's working on that specific task. And so two of our overarching questions that I wanted to share this evening so that you have a full understanding of what exactly is guiding our work. And those questions are, what is our vision for the merger? And how do we facilitate a successful merger? And so how exactly did the Transition Task Force come to be? Why did we create this work group to begin with? And how do we feel like this work group will benefit the two teacher groups as far as facilitating that merger? So in late September of this school year, I sent an invitation to the Hickson and Steger staff groups to invite them to be a part of the work group, the Transition Task Force. And the reason why I sent that invitation to the two groups was because in order to facilitate a successful merger and facilitate really a very large and pretty detailed change process, we have to involve the voices of teachers and get them at the table, get their voices at the table. So that was the purpose of that invitation, and also knowing in that invitation that there had been no finalized staffing decisions made, but still there was a lot of really important work that needed to be done, and that couldn't necessarily wait or align necessarily with the staffing timeline. But we knew that we needed to get started, so that's why we started when we did. So I had 26 teachers respond to that invitation, a combination of Hickson and Steger staff members. And then as part of that invitation process and that sign-up process, we had created some work groups and asked teachers which work group would you like to be a part of, and I'll explain those work groups a little later on in this presentation. So far, we have met 3 times. And in our first meeting on November the 4th, we made a decision on what dates we would actually meet, and made adjustments to those as necessary, but we met last week, and then we're meeting again next week, and then we will reconvene together to determine what our second semester dates will be. And when we are meeting, it's an hour after school, from 3:45 to 4:45. And since the staff members predetermined which work groups they would like to be a part of, I separate them out into their breakout groups, and then as the principal, I bounce between the breakout groups to check in on the plans that the groups are making and provide any consultation or help them make some decisions in their work. So now I'll go through the various work groups, and we have a total of 4 right now. So our first work group is our equity work group. And it was very important for us to bring equity to the table because as we are thinking about reimagining middle school education in the Western Grove School District, and thinking about how we might establish a strong foundation for that work, equity really needs to be at the center. It really needs to be a focus. And so 4 guiding questions for the equity work group include how do we identify and dismantle inequities within our school? How do we embed equity into the foundation of our school? What learning opportunities do we need to provide to students and staff? And also, what does our data say? So each work group was assigned a list of required outcomes that I gave each group. And then also, of course, other things that they had the opportunity to create other things as they are collaborating together. But they had to do those things that are listed under required outcomes. So first, if we're going to do equity work within our school, we all need to have a full understanding of what equity is. And so we need to have a shared definition. Second, and this second bullet point really came out of a really powerful and dynamic presentation from Dr. Paul Gorski, who facilitated an equity workshop with our staff after school earlier in the school year. But one of the most interesting things that he said in that presentation was, if your school is going to engage in equity work, then you need to at least start with listing out what the inequities are that exist within your school, and then start to devise a plan to dismantle those inequities. So we need to do that work, and we need to design a process that we could utilize, a meaningful process, to determine what are the inequities that exist within our school before we can start to dismantle those inequities. Also, recommend areas to start to dismantle those inequities, so we can't do them all at once. So we need to start with the highest leverage areas and work backwards from there. And then also recommend continued professional development ideas for the following school year. So this is just a sample of the equity group's timeline. It is in no way complete. It is definitely a working document, but you can just kind of see the work develop through their timeline and just some of the things that they're thinking about. We're in the midst of administering a survey to gather feedback from Steger and Dixon on what inequities they notice within our school now, so that as we shift into second semester, then we can start to create a plan. So we need obviously feedback from our stakeholders in order to create a plan that will actually work. The next group is our transition of students group. And also I forgot to mention that up here in the upper right hand corner, you can see names listed of the teachers and staff members who are a part of these work groups. So the transition of students group is charged with thinking about how we will successfully transition students in. So that includes our incoming sixth graders and our incoming seventh graders. So I've worked with sixth grade before, I've taught sixth grade before, and they're new to the building, obviously, and they're also new to the middle school environment. And so they might need some additional strategies or some specialized approaches to successfully transitioning them into the school community and making sure that they feel a part and feel welcome. So their guiding questions include, what ideas or strategies can we use to best support our sixth graders? And we're really leaning on our Steger teachers here, because they have that experience with working with sixth graders. And so we're leaning on their knowledge and expertise to really help us understand what do we need to do specifically for sixth graders that we might not necessarily need to do for our older students. Also, what transition strategies do we need to implement in second semester, and then also in the summer? So in second semester, we will start to notice or start to have transition meetings such as visiting elementary schools or visiting Steger and helping them understand our courses. Now, we might not be able to do that in person this year given our current circumstances, but this group is charged with thinking about some creative ways to engage students in learning about Hickson and what it's all about, and also our parents as well. And then also, what might a grade level orientation look like? So this year coming up, we are transitioning in 2 grade levels, 6th grade and 7th grade. And what kind of experience can we create for our incoming students over the summer that will properly and thoroughly orient them into our new building? So the 3 things that this group has been charged with include recommend those specific strategies for 6th graders, plan and execute the registration meetings and incoming 5th and 6th grade meetings in January and February, and also plan the orientation with support, of course. So this is their timeline, and you can just kind of see, again, their brain work and the creative ideas that they have. Some of these are existing ideas. Some of these they're having to start to think about from a virtual lens, but their work is underway and they're working very well together to get these tasks done. The third work group is the transition of staff group. So we can't forget about our teachers. This is a huge transition for them as well, Hickson, both Hickson and Steger. And so my strategy that I think will really work and which has been working for us is to start building those relationships early. We can't wait until May or over the summer because this is such a large transition and we need to start that process as soon as possible. So some of it just involves making sure that figuring out how we might be able to just have fun together as two separate groups right now that will eventually become one. So two of their guiding questions include, how do we just build relationships across the two staff groups and help people get to know each other, even in the midst of a global pandemic when it feels like we are also distant? And then also, what can we do at the end of the year to commemorate an end of an era at Steger and also symbolically open up a new Hickson? So 3 things that I charge this group with doing include plan and execute social events for Hickson and Steger, help orient Steger staff ahead of the students so that they would be in the position to help students when they need that, and then also plan an end of the year celebration or ceremony. So here you can see the timeline of the transition of staff group, and you can just kind of see some of the creative ideas that they have put together so far. Some of these ideas we've already executed, for example, the meaningful moments, and that's just a simple award process that Hickson and Steger staff members can recommend or nominate another staff member for something that's really nice or meaningful that they've done for another staff member. And so we've gone through our first round of the meaningful moments awards, and I have to say that just reading the nominations from staff members was very heartwarming. And so now we're getting ready to go through another round before we go on winter break. And then also for January the 4th, for example, we are planning a surprise fun type of activity for both staffs to come together. And then team number 4 is the rebranding and campus beautification work group. So this group basically is charged with looking at the spaces at Hickson, both inside and outside, and thinking about how we might update the physical appearance of our building, but also what I call updating our digital appearance, including our letterhead, including our school logo, et cetera, to kind of give our school a refresh look as much as possible. So their guiding questions are, what changes can we make to the building to ensure our school is an inviting place for our students, staff, and parents? How can we update the look of our digital presence, which I mentioned? And then how should we revise our team names to show that we are one Hickson? So currently, the Steger teams are named after stars, and then Hickson teams are named after colors. So obviously, instead of going with one theme or the other, we have decided that we will come up with a completely new theme and then create team names around that new theme. So this group is super busy, as are the others, but this group has a few more tasks assigned to them compared to the others. But some required outcomes of this group include designing a new logo. So we have already launched a logo redesign process that we are inviting Hickson and Steger students and staff to participate in. Also, the building needs signage. When you walk around Hickson, it is very difficult if you're not familiar with the building to just get around because it lacks signage. So I'm charging them with that task. We talked about team names. Thinking about also how we can beautify our outdoor spaces. And then here's a picture of just a giant blank wall that came out of the result of a construction project, and the arrow is temporary, it's just tape. But thinking about what can we do with this wall? This wall is at the end of the future 6th grade hallway. So what can we do with this to, again, help to beautify our space?
Dr. Mays, are you allowing students to help on any of those groups or anything, or input?
We are. So students are invited to participate in the logo redesign contest. For example, the 6th grade teachers, science teachers, I met with them last week, and they're wanting to get students involved with the campus beautification to surround the school and planting different gardens and things like that. So we do have some ideas to include students in this work. And then just real quick, this is the timeline that the campus rebranding and campus beautification group is working So this is the end, but just one thing that I wanted to bring up or just make sure that I mentioned is when we talk about facilitating a successful merger, I like our process that we have in place because it focuses on collaboration, relationship building, getting teachers involved in the decision-making and facilitating change. We have a lot of creative thinkers on the team, and also it's building enthusiasm around the merger process. So that's all I have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Amy, Christine? Christine, go ahead. We can't hear you.
Yes, Dr. Mays, first of all, thank you so much. I love hearing all of this. I do have an incoming sixth grader next year. We drove her by the building and we can already tell she's enthusiastic and excited about this transition. I loved seeing that we have middle school as well. That helps, I'm sure, parents like myself who are going to see their kids go from elementary school to middle school. My internet is unstable. And my question, I guess, then is, can you at least reassure us, those of us who are virtual in fifth grade right now, that our kids are being and will be, I forget what the word you used, like welcomed into the school, like throughout the spring, that you'll be thinking about our virtual kids too.
Yes, so can I reassure you that the virtual students will be included in these conversations and they will, so as we're thinking about how we will approach transition this year, given our current circumstances, that is most definitely a part of our conversations because we need to reach all of our students. All of our future students need to know what the courses are, what Hickson is like. So we're going to have to get creative with how we do that because I don't think that we'll be able to go and visit elementary schools. And even if we did, we do still have a whole virtual, whole group of students who are being educated in the virtual world right now. So regardless of if it's all virtual or some in person, some virtual, we feel very strongly that it's important that we educate all of our students on, what Hickson Middle School is all about. Whether it would require us to create some virtual tours and share those videos with elementary school teachers so that they can then share them with their students regardless of what program they're in. I have already had teachers ask me if they can create videos about their classes and those types of things to share with incoming students. So we definitely have a lot of creative ideas on the table to make sure that virtual students are included because they're going to be our students regardless of what mode of education they're in.
Yeah, thank you.
Dr. Mays, I have a quick question as well. Can you, a lot of this is great. Thank you so much for providing this. But can you tell us a little bit about, I'm thinking particularly about those incoming sixth graders that are be coming into Hickson for the first time. Can you tell us or remind us what sort of new options those students are going to have since they're part of the larger 6 through 8 system now? So what sort of curriculum changes are you thinking about, or is there a process to think through that for us?
Yeah, so we are proposing and planning to move forward with some new elective course offerings for sixth graders. We have created 2 sixth grade wheel options, and the purpose of the sixth grade wheel is to give students, our sixth grade students, sort of like a taste of what electives we offer at the 7th and 8th grade level. So one wheel we're calling the humanities wheel, and the humanities wheel will include family and consumer sciences, world languages, drama, and music exploration. And then the other wheel is a STEAM wheel, and the STEAM wheel will include intro to engineering, makerspace, art, and computer science. And so a sixth grade student or a Hickson student, period, can select they have 2 electives that they can select courses for. And so a sixth grader can either take a music, so band, choir, or orchestra, or, and then that will fulfill one of their electives, and then they need to select another one. So then the sixth grade elective offerings are the two wheels. So if I already have filled one of my electives with band, choir, or orchestra, then I will need to select between one of the two wheels, and that'll fulfill both of those. Or a sixth grader who's not in band, choir, or orchestra will take both wheels. And then sometimes in a rare circumstance, we'll have a student who maybe likes band and choir, or choir and orchestra. So they can have those options as well.
Great, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you very much.
And I just want to say again, huge kudos to the administrative team, Hickson, and the task of doing this merger is pretty extraordinary. And so is also returning kids to an environment, keeping them safe, and educate them. So as for Dr. Mays, transitioning from one school system to another school system and one role to the next. And all along the way, they've all kept kids at the center, positive focus, and just a lot of really good energy. So I can't thank you all enough. Great job.
Okay.
And you don't have to stay for the entire meeting if you don't want to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Try not to take the rest. Okay, Proposition E, construction update.
So good evening. Mr. Rob Stuber, our project manager, was unable to join us this evening, so I'll be giving the presentation. So we'll start with those safety, security, and accessibility projects at Avery, Bristol, and Edgar Road. As you know, we're working to improve the accessibility throughout the building. The elevator shaft exterior brick veneer has been completed at Avery, Bristol, and Edgar Road. Ground level foyers have been completed at all three facilities. Roofing assemblies are now complete and are awaiting sheet metal finishes. And then preparations are being made to receive the elevator mechanical assembly at Avery and Bristol within the next 2 weeks, and Edgar Roads will follow after the first of the year. The exterior sidewalk, curb, and EVA accessible ramps at each building have begun layout and installation. Then at Walter Ambrose, not a lot has changed there from our last report, but the installation of the safety, security, and accessibility door hardware and control devices equipment are now being scheduled for installation. We're hoping that's going to happen within the next 2 weeks. There's a picture of Avery. At the back of Bristol, where that elevator there is going in. Edgar Road, same thing where that elevator will be. And then this is the same picture from last time too of Walter Ambrose. Not much has changed on the outside until we get that door hardware in. But Hickson, there's a lot going on at Hickson. I don't know if you've been able to drive by there, but a lot of stuff going on there. So as you know, most of the demolition is complete. Most of the footings, foundations are complete. The storm shelter gymnasium concrete and the library admin second floor concrete are currently being scheduled. The precast multi-purpose room concrete panel walls have been set in place, and structural concrete roof deck has been placed and will receive roofing material installation soon. I actually think they started on that today. The administration library steel package is nearing completion with the installation of the steel pan decking and roof decking. The cafeteria steel and masonry block has been placed with plans to start exterior metal stud framing soon. And then the music classroom addition is well underway with the installation of the structural load bearing masonry block wall. And some pictures there. Oops, let me go through that so quickly. So there's the cafeteria. It's starting to look like it's actually going to be an extension of the cafeteria there. And they're looking at that 2-story classroom wing where they're working on the second floor. And then here's where it starts to really look like it's going to be a building when they start on that metal stud framing on those interior walls. And here's the academic wing again with the exterior metal stud framing. And here's just a picture of the plumbing that's going in for the rough-in at the restrooms there at the ground level. And the storm shelter, the kind they're getting ready there for the concrete floor. So, any questions, comments?
Does anybody have any questions? Keita?
I just had a quick question. Yeah. Well, was that also gonna be like the gym or something?
Yes.
Just wanna make sure I'm telling the seventh grader right.
Thank you very much. No, you
Do
do.
we have a problem there? We can hear. All right, okay, good stuff. Okay, thank you very much.
I think someone's got a YouTube on.
Somebody over there. I think it's,
Going to the speaker.
yeah.
We're good. Okay.
We good? Maybe not for that, YouTube. Okay, budget adjustment.
Give me a minute here to share my screen.
Thank you.
Okay, our first budget adjustment of the year. As you can imagine, this has been a very unique year, to say the least. We have more budget adjustments in this budget adjustment than we normally do, just because there are so many moving pieces due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And just to let you know too, there are things that we'll continue to monitor for the next few months, and we'll probably be back again at the end of the next quarter to do another budget adjustment. So right now, we're making the best educated estimate as to how the year will end during these unprecedented times. So start with our revenue adjustments. Prop C sales tax, we're increasing that by $93,501. That is a category that did not get as hit as hard as they thought originally. One of the things I think that's helping that is that grocery tax is a part of that. DESI is actually thinking that the formula calculation that they use will end up being about 1,040 or 1,049 per ADA. We're using in this budget adjustment 1,005 per ADA to be conservative, since we don't know for sure what's going to happen. If it does go up to that 1,049, that would mean another additional $150,000 in revenue for the district. Transportation fees, we've increased that by $20,000. Those are the fees that the parents pay for their students to ride the bus, and since we did not have school the first several weeks of the year, we reduced that. Lunch and breakfast sales, this is the local part of the food service budget, which would be parents paying for lunches. Right now, all lunches and breakfasts are free, so we reduced that. We do have some a la carte sales that we're still leaving in there. We have a few a la carte, but that's another big area that we reduced because we just don't have those a la carte sales like we normally do either. Interest earnings. Interest earnings were reduced when we brought you the budget to adopt in June, but interest rates have continued to decrease, so we've reduced those accounts by $452,000. Facility usage we've reduced by $30,000 because we have not been renting out our facility. Adventure Club tuition, that one has been reduced by a little over $1 million because we didn't have Adventure Club at the beginning of the year, and now we have a very much reduced students attending that program. Preschool tuition, again, fewer students attending, so that tuition account was reduced. The basic formula, that's going up almost $100,000, and there's a couple of reasons that one's going up. One is we had a virtual summer school this past summer for the first time, and actually had more students attend that summer school program virtually than we did previously when they were in person. So that ADA for the summer school program counts, and that helps us in our formula funding. And then also the amount that DESE's saying we're going to get is also increasing. The allocation that they gave us, they don't think we're going to get to that, but they think it's going to be to 95 or 96% of that allocation. What's in the budget right now, and this adjustment is 94.2%. So if we get up to 95 or 96, like Desi thinks is very possible, that would mean about another $75,000 or so for the district. Food service, state and federal. So now on this side, we've increased the federal food service account because as students get those free meals, we get reimbursed from the federal government for them. So we've increased those budgets. Title was increased to what our allocation from DESE is at almost $94,000. Now we'll start with all of our grants. These are all types of CARES grants that the district has received. First one is an ESSER grant, and that's $231,000. That grant is a little bit different from the other ones. First, we have to share a portion of this $231,000 with the non-public schools in the district. And we also had to share a portion of it with Great Circle and Epworth. And that's going to leave roughly $134,000 that will be just revenue for the district that we are putting towards salaries. Then we have the CARE Student Access Grant. We use that to expand Wi-Fi connectivity to the exterior of some of our buildings and also to pay for hotspots. Then the CARES K-12 Support Grant. We just received that one at the end of October. That grant is a little bit different. Usually we have to tell DESE what we're going to spend it on, and then they send it to us. This one, they sent it to us and said, oh, now you have to tell us what you're going to spend it on. That's a good chunk of money, but it's very specific. That ESSER grant, we could just use that for salaries to cover our deficit. With this one, we can't do that. It has to be specifically COVID-related things. So we're looking at, we can use it for desks that we purchase. We can use it for the virtual instruction to launch that we have to pay and things like that, but it has to be COVID-related items. The next one is that CARE St. Louis County DESE grant that the board approved in November. So that was a 75% county grant matching by DESE where they paid the other 25%. And that one was like our disinfectant sprayers and PPE and hand sanitizer and the hand sanitizing stations and things like that. The last one is a new one, is also in your packet this evening, which is the CARE St. Louis County preschool grant that the preschool program applied for, and they're getting $24,000 from the county. Then on the expenditure side, so we reduced salary and benefits by a little over $584,000. We removed the alumni coordinator position. We added our director of diversity position, and then we reduced adventure club and preschool program salary and benefits to what we think they should be for the rest of the year. Tuition to other districts, we increased that, estimating what we think we're going to have to pay for virtual learning for launch through the rest of the year. Then other professional services, that decreased almost $106,000. One of the decreases there was the summer school virtual program through launch. We had to estimate, we've never done that before, having a virtual program. So we estimated what we thought we were going to have to pay to launch, and we ended up $30,000 over on that. So we're able to reduce that. Food services being reduced by $235,000. Simply because they are serving less meals and we didn't have school for several days at the beginning of the year. Student transportation, again, that's also reduced because of the reduced days. And then we had several adjustments in our title accounts, preschool accounts, and then different miscellaneous adjustments there, and which equal about $210,000. And the supply care category, the biggest one there is the carryover from last year, because you know we allow our buildings to carry over their budget if they have a plan in place of what they want to spend that on. So our hope there is they're not just spending their budget every year just to spend it all. They're always spending it with a purpose. And if they want to save for a couple of years for a big project, then they can do that. This year, our carryover is much larger than it has in the past. As you can imagine, we didn't have school the last quarter of the year in-person school, so they weren't spending as much. So we have a larger than normal carryover. I think last year it was about 175, 180,000, and it's 433,000 this year. Then our title accounts, again, have been adjusted. We always adjust the title accounts so they equal what the revenue is coming in. We have some preschool adjustments, some reductions, and then some other miscellaneous reductions. Most of the budget transfers that you see, if you look in the one document in the packet, are just transfers. A principal may say, hey, I want to move some money from a supply account to my copy machine account or something like that. And then COVID supplies, that we have an account where we're trying to keep track of some of those COVID supplies, and that was added at $272,000. So overall, that's a reduction of just under 65,000. So if we look at the total budget, revenues at about 67,700,000, expenditures at 87,226,000. We have to remember we have $18 million of bond expenditures in there. We received that revenue for them in the previous fiscal years. Then if we just look at the operating funds. So if you look at just the operating funds, we have a little over 62 million in revenue, 82 million in expenditure, so a deficit of 20. But then I think we need to look at that with taking those bond accounts out. So we're expecting to receive, unfortunately, just a little bit of interest. So we removed that bond interest out of there, removed the 18 million we plan to spend this year on our project. So the deficit is 2,024,000. But then we need to break that down and take a look at that. So if we have the $2 million deficit, just about 1 million of that is Walter Ambrose Family Center. And as we talked at the meeting earlier in the year, they have their own reserve account that will cover this. Their reserve is going to go down about 67%, but they do have funding to cover this deficit. Then when you add in the carryover for last year, because we have to add that to the expenditures, our net operating balance is a negative 600,000, and that's an improvement of about 200,000 from the budget that was adopted in June. And one other thing I just wanted to talk about a little bit here, child nutrition. Right now, we're projecting that they're going to have $150,000 deficit. A couple things going on there. One, the students are just not eating the school lunches like they were in the past. So we're working on getting the word out that our child nutrition department does a great job following protocols. You know, they're making sure they're preparing everything in a safe manner. But we're really just seeing that down right now, so we're working on that. And also our a la carte at the high school, we had budgeted $200,000 in a la carte revenue, and obviously we're not receiving that right now because most high school students are not eating since they have the split day. And then I think I mentioned to you several months ago that we applied for a FEMA grant. Well, that's a slow process, as you can imagine. Districts all over the country are applying for FEMA funds. And we're expecting about $30,000 in that grant, but we are still waiting on final approval. And here just to share with you our revenue, now we have locals 82% and federals 3%. At the budget adopted, our federal level was at 2%. So we're kind of just shifting that a little bit with all these federal funds that we're receiving. Then on the expenditure side, we're pretty much the same. 45% of our total budget is salaries, benefits 13%, purchase services 7%, supplies 7%, capital's 22%. That's because of those bond projects that we're paying for, and our bond payments are 6%. So we're happy to answer any questions or take any comments that you have.
Any questions? Yeah.
And you may or may not know the answer to this. I understand why the students may not be eating at the high school level, but are more students perhaps bringing their lunches, or do we know why they're not?
Yeah, they are. More of them are bringing their lunches. We looked at one of the elementary schools and they were doing about 150 lunches a day. Last year, they're doing 50 this year.
And that's even considering it's all free right now. Breakfast and lunch is free for all ages of children. Yeah. So we're really trying to get that communication, that word and encouragement out there, making sure that they know that about the safety, and again, the no cost.
Thank you.
Anything else? Great job, Pam, and great job, Joanne. Joanne's on the
Yeah,
line.
thank you, Joanne.
Fantastic work.
Okay. Okay, and next, the anti-bias, anti-racism policy.
Do we need to make a motion on?
Um,
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
You need a motion for the other one?
Yes, please.
Sorry. Keto?
Make a motion to approve the budget adjustment number 1 as presented. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Second.
Joe, thank you. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? And any abstention? Okay. Thank you, Joe. Okay, anti-bias and anti-racism policy.
Good evening. I'm going to jump up here to join in with some of my teammates who helped co-craft this policy. Sharing tonight are going to be Jason, Sean, Sandy, myself, as well as Ezra. Pam was also part of the development, but she's had the floor a lot tonight, so she's taking this one off. And I'm certainly going to invite Joe and Keita and Amy to chime in. We have a special guest star tonight who's going to kind of open this with us. His name's Ezra Park. Ezra and I met through pretty unfortunate circumstances last summer. And since that time, he's somebody I've had an opportunity to spend quite a bit of time with and have enjoyed supporting, encouraging, and also being followed by his leadership. Tonight, he's joining us via Zoom. He's going to go silent soon after that because he's got some work to do. But Ezra is going to share with us his perspective on the policy, the importance of the policy, as well as the student voice and the representation in its crafting. I will say that Ezra has also, in addition to the work with the policy, getting students involved, he also was a leader in the hiring process that led us to Dr. Williamson, again, engaging students, crafting questions and such. So Ezra, I appreciate you being here tonight. I'm going to turn the floor over to you.
All right. Thank you for those kind words, Dr. Simpson. That was really nice. It's interesting kind of listening to you through a little tiny square, but we'll look past that. Obviously, like Dr. Simpson said, I go to the high school. I'm a senior this year. So I was just mostly asked to talk about my involvement and what I like, my thoughts really on this policy. And so I guess I'll kind of start off with a quick little story. So even though I kind of grew up in the Webster Grove School District, I did spend the first few years of my life living in government housing out in the Central West End. And I actually wrote one of my college essays on this. So I've reflected on it quite a lot in the past few months, but I grew up around people that pretty much looked like me. Like every single person I was around looked like me. And it became kind of the only life that I knew at the time. And then we moved back to Webster and I started going to preschool and elementary school here. And I was surrounded by a ton of white kids. I ended up being one of the only Black kids in my class. And I remember back in July when we had, or July, June, when we had first started working on this and it was still in the early stages, I kind of mustered up that courage to unmute myself on the Zoom and suggest that maybe we add something about honors classes and gifted programs. And that was just mostly fueled because I remember being one of the 2 Black students in my grade, at least in elementary school, in Project Plus, and seeing that number only increase by 1 student by the time I was a freshman in high school. And I just remember like having that feeling as if I was kind of the imposter of the group. And after living in an all Black community and moving to a district where everyone is white, this really affected my mental health and my academics and just the way that I lived my life. And obviously I can't speak for every Black student here, but what can I say, what I can say for myself is that at some points I definitely didn't feel included. I didn't feel heard. I felt wrong. And within the 5-minute time span I do have with you today, I obviously can't express all of my thoughts. But at least what I do want to say is that this is definitely something we need. We need it so badly. I think I've lived the last 13 years of my life watching a ton of these issues that we're going to talk about in this policy go unnoticed. And I've experienced a lot of them firsthand. I've cried about them to my mom while sitting in the pickup line outside of Gibbons, waiting for my younger brothers to come out of school that will probably also experience these things. And I don't want that for either of them. And I don't want that for anyone past, like anyone that's going to come after me. So after these, over the few months that I've been working with Dr. Simpson and the board, and obviously they've seen so much of me lately, and I hope it's not too much because I only have a semester left with you guys. I've seen more effort put into this policy than I have the entire time I've been here. And I mean, that honestly could bring tears to my eyes right here, but I don't really want to cry over the Zoom right now. But I love that I've been given the opportunity to use my voice and to bring other students' voices into the conversation multiple times. I know the work Dr. Simpson, the board, Maya and Tanzania, who are also seniors with me that I've included on these conversations, have, and a ton of others have. What we've done here is one of the main reasons why I'm proud to say that I'm from Webster Groves and that I am a statesman. And it's one of the reasons that I know when I graduate that we are moving a step closer to the future that I want for my younger siblings and for every other Black and any other color, like student of color, to be living in here. Sorry. So I just kind of want to end what I'm saying with a quote from one of my most like favorite people in the world. I have them on my wall behind me. I don't think you can see. It just reads, "Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek." And a lot of people probably know that. That's by Barack Obama. That was a few months before he became the first Black president of the United States. I was like 6 at the time, or 5 or 6. So though my time here is coming to a close, I'm going to hope that this isn't the last time you'll see me. I'm going to hope that the change that's going to be presented today, you use as your motivation to stop waiting for everyone else to do things. And I hope that it impacts you the way it impacted me. Thank you.
So I don't know what else to say. The applause is worthy. You may be able to hold those tears in, Ezra, but I know that I'm not the only one who didn't hear. So you can see the power and the wisdom and the leadership in that young person is remarkable. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sean. I'm glad I don't have to follow him.
That's right.
But Sean will share a little bit, and then we'll jump in.
Good evening, everyone. And Ezra, whichever institution you select to attend, they are fortunate to have you. You are just a phenomenal person and a young man, and soon a phenomenal alum of our school district. So thank you for everything, and thank you for hiring me, by the way. You all have the policy, so I'm not going to read it to you verbatim. Just want to highlight a few areas, and I'm going to just cover the principles and purpose, and then my colleagues will fill in for the other areas. So under the principles, the bottom line for this policy is that we want to be authentic and we want to be genuine. And so in that first point, we're talking about the community. You have a collective responsibility. So we all have to own this policy together. And then we all have to be held accountable to address and to eliminate and to prevent actions that are perpetuated out of racism and or bias. We have to respect and validate diversity. We also have to acknowledge that racism and bias are compounded by other forms of discrimination, such as socioeconomic status. And under our purpose, this policy doesn't stand alone. So we have our school's mission, vision, values, goals, as well as our equity resolution. So we bring all that together to show that we're committed to having inclusive staff, students, families, and community members. We have to look at our root causes. So what is actually causing these particular issues? How do we solve these issues? How do we address these issues? And how do we prevent them from coming back? And then lastly, we're not making assumptions about what students need. We're just doing the research to find out and address those issues. There's complex societal and historical factors that kind of build into this entire situation of our inequities in our educational environment. And our goal is that we must address and eliminate those areas. So now Dr. Simpson will present next. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Williamson. Accountability was a big theme throughout the development of the policy. Accountability to the members of the organization as well as the organization itself. And we talk a lot about, when we talk about equity or strategies that have been employed, is that it's not something where you just create specific strategies in isolation that are going to have an impact. We've done that for a long time. And while some of them do have impact, we have to look at the fabric of our organization. We have to look at the people that we hire, how we recruit them, how we retain them. That's been a goal for a long time, and it has to remain a great goal. And I feel good about the progress that we've made there. We also have to have that express commitment, explicit commitment in the work that we do. So equity, diversity, equity, inclusion is all of our work. But we also felt it important, we felt it important as a board to have somebody that's work is exclusive to that and contributing across systems, across structures to vet systems and structures for equity and ensure that they're in place. Again, coming back to that fabric, connecting with our stakeholders on a regular basis, on a biannual basis, just to assess where they are, how they are invited to the system, how they are included, who they are, how they show up is an important strategy. Also, kind of like Ezra talked about, just looking at all the different disaggregated data and examining them for bias, examining them for racism, and determining what strategies need to be put in place. All of this, there's been a number of ways that equity has been brought in through different presentations, through different departments. We've had in the past, there have been times where we've had kind of a state of the union, so to speak, with equity. But within this particular policy document, it outlines the commitment to doing that on a regular basis, and not just looking at all the data that we typically think of when we look at measures of outcomes, but also how are we doing with this particular policy and the strategies as a tie to this document. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Adams on the learning side.
Good evening to all of you. We are a learning organization, and so that's why we are here. And so not only for our students, but for the adults that are in our space as well. And so within the learning section of this policy, we are very much highlighting learning. And on the part of our staff, not only professional development, but also personal development and the importance around putting emphasis around that for our staff and the message that that sends. It's been a privilege to work with Dr. Williamson over the last few months, weeks, to develop our training for this year that we've rolled out, and we are in the process of continuing to roll out on our professional development days for staff. And we are also partnering to create a long-term plan that will welcome new staff into our district, but then also catch our staff up who have been within our system for quite a while as well, so that everyone is getting a common message about the importance of this work and the foundation truly with which our district operates. In addition to that, when we think about our learners, our students, offering opportunities for our students through the curriculum resources that we select to see themselves in our curriculum, not only to see themselves, but to see themselves portrayed in a positive light. And so one of the steps that we will be taking going forward based on this policy is that within our curriculum development process, and within our selection process of resources, we will very much be honoring this work and having this be a foundational consideration as we make future choices. In addition to that, also looking at the programming that we are providing within our schools and outside of our schools during the school day, outside of the school day, for students to interact with one another and to experience different experiences related to cross-cultural experiences. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Dr.
Hello, everyone. This last portion that I'm going to talk about policy enforcement and monitoring, this was really huge and key for the committee. And Amy talked about it a lot in our policy committee, right? Like you have a policy and you type it up, but like, really, is it in life? Like, what does it look like practically? And so those last 5 points really talk about how we as a committee and we as a district plan to enforce and then also to monitor this. We talked a lot with Dr. Kira last year. She often shared with us about our sphere of influence. And so even though my role is different in HR than Jason in learning, however, my sphere of influence, what am I doing to impact equity, diversity within human resources? What is he doing in learning? What is a teacher doing at a kindergarten level? What is a PE teacher doing in his or her gym? And so this section is really talking about how we are empowering ourselves to ensure that they are following themselves in their own sphere, but then also what other components do we set up to ensure that we are not tolerating any racist or biased acts towards anyone within our district. So that section really just speaks to us being in compliance with the policy, and then also we do expect our staff to be active participants in the training and the PD and those things that we're establishing. There's no point in doing all the work if people are not actively involved. So those are things that we want to ensure that our staff are doing. There are other policies that speak directly to if we don't do these things, what will happen. So this policy, this portion doesn't really speak to that because we know that it's covered in other portions of our board policy. But it would be our goal to support people as best we can, make sure they have what they need in order to not only participate in the PD, but also with their own sphere of influence. What can they do to make this policy become alive because it's embedded in the people? And then if not, what are we doing to support and make sure that the staff have what they need in order to be successful? And now I'll turn it back over to John. Okay.
So the next steps, once approved, is that while there are some details in here, and again, our in-house legal counsel with Amy and Doug would say, just make sure what you're doing in here, you got to do. and so there are some to-dos in here, but one of the next steps following this development is also developing action plans for some of the things that are listed in here, the practical pieces with these things. So thank you to everybody who shared, and I'll invite Joe and Keita and Amy if anybody else wants to speak.
Sure. I just get to wherever, whatever. You can't be seen if you're already.
I just wanted to thank everyone, Ezra, the students, everyone, Joe, Amy, that really worked so hard and put forth so many thoughtful questions and suggestions. I'm with Ezra, I'm an alumni, and I remember when I was a student and I felt that way, being one of few or the only in a class, and how I felt out of place. And I don't want that for my kids, even though my kids are pretty much half done now. But I love being a part and seeing the genuine care that everyone was putting into this policy. And I love the fact that we valued input from teachers and students and other community members. So I really appreciate all the hard work that went into it. So thank you very much.
Amy, did you have anything you wanted to say?
No, I just echoed the appreciation expressed by Keita.
Joe?
I would just agree with Keita. I think the biggest thing was seeing the collaboration between so many different teachers, parents, and again, students, which is huge because you actually hear from people that have lived it and are living it and really want to make it better.
Any questions from anybody? Okay,
I have one.
please go ahead.
I don't know if it's a question or a suggestion. For some who might want to know, like specifically, let's just say discipline. Is there a way to maybe, and I know that those are covered in other policies, would there be a way for looking at this policy to maybe reference that policy, you know what I'm saying? Or like, how, would there be a way to make it easier for them to find an answer?
Yeah, so we definitely can do that. And most of our board policies, at the bottom, typically of the policy, there will be links to other policies that are related to or if you are purposeful as you're stating in that policy enforcement, you could say, please refer to policy or policy AC or GBCD for further reference. We can definitively do that and ensure they're listed at the bottom of the policy as a link as well. Yeah.
I think that'd be awesome.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, so superintendent update on the 2021 school year.
Yeah, just a few brief things I wanted to share. First of all, things are going really well, in my opinion, in the pre-K through 12th grade. As you know, in this age, this COVID age, that the positives, the quarantines are just going to be something that is what we do. And so I do feel extraordinarily good about the steps that our staffs are taking in order to create safe environments for our kids. We did finish the enrollment process for second semester since we last met. We have about 4 or 5% more students, K through 12, that selected the responsive setting, which is the 3 tiers currently in person for the second semester. And we did, following our discussion at the last board meeting, we did find opportunities for students, high school students, who were part of the virtual program and were in year-long courses. We found opportunities for them to continue in those courses, those year-longs, through the end of that first semester. So I did want to make sure you were following that discussion. And it was something that the high school leadership was already trying to problem solve on themselves. And I feel good about their work there. The high school, again, kind of like what we had shared before, the only reason the high school is not all in person like our elementaries and middle school is due to the enrollment, the size of a lot of the classes, and the size of some of the spaces where those students would be. Not the size overall of the school. There's a lot of space within the school, but some of the rooms. They had, I believe it was over 140 classes that were in the upper 20s and some in the low 30s. The hope is that with the second semester, with the new enrollment, focusing on trying to keep some of those levels down, that we can get class sizes to the level where we could have all of the kids in session, provided we feel, again, it's safe to do so and we can safely do so. So that still remains to be seen. Sandy and some of us are meeting with the principals, just looking at the data, looking at the staffing as it relates to second semester. And believe it or not, we're already starting to look forward to the following year. Along that line, one of the things that what we need to be doing is we need to find out, ask our elementary school parents. It seems like the redistricting process was so long ago, but in all actuality, it was only 8 months. Isn't that hard to believe? It seems like an eternity. But as part of that process, you will remember that students that were enrolled in a school in 2021, elementary school, could continue in that school for the remainder of their elementary career. If they wanted to go to their newly zoned school, they could do that. But students that were coming in 21, 22, in order to relieve a space crowding in our schools, had to go to their newly zoned school. So what we have to do is we have to find out from parents, what are you gonna choose? We need to find out where the kindergartners are, and try to know what kindergartners are gonna like, and then where they're gonna be, and then how many families are gonna make the decision to move to a different school. We think still that there's probably gonna be a lot that stay, and they may try to navigate 2 schools, but certainly everybody has the option to send their children to 1 school. And again, a lot of the attention gets directed at Gibbons, given it's a new elementary school, but we have children that will be going to Bristol, children that will be going to Hudson, and children that will be going to Gibbons. The Avery, Clark, and Edgar Road zones, those are just shrinking. And so there won't be actually any new additions to those schools. They'll just be shrinking. So it's not just a Gibbons thing, it's an elementary school thing. We highlighted Melissa Beecham here recently. She continues to do an awesome job of just building that Gibbons community. having sessions with families that might be going or entertaining the thought of sending their children to Gibbons. So we'll have her give her an update on those sessions at an upcoming meeting. So I just kind of wanted to make you aware that that communication will start going home next week about this is something we're going to have to come back to you on, and we're going to have to ask you to declare to help us. So that's it, pretty succinct, but open to any questions you have or anything that you heard or anything.
When do people have to make that decision? Is there a date?
Early January. Early January. And that's because we have staffing. You know, we have to shift people. Contracts come out in March. So we have to make all those adjustments prior to March. So we'll ask him in January.
A question. Can you say again, there was a 4 to 5% increase in the responsive plan from last time? Okay. Have you seen any, I remember in a previous report, you talked a little bit about people that had chosen to homeschool or move their, any change in those numbers? You had any of that data?
I don't think we've seen a lot of kids come back from homeschool, have we?
No.
Yeah.
Okay. Just curious.
We're anticipating they'll come back. We haven't seen any come back right now, or I shouldn't say any, but the numbers from private school. But I know the private school, the number of them, because I do know people who went private school, but they plan to come back. A number of the private schools, I don't know if all of them did it, they asked for tuition for the year up front. Not wanting people to kind of move. We've seen some of that happen with our schools. People who said, I love my private school, but this was last spring. I'd like to come and do what you're doing. But as soon as my school opens back up, I'm going back. We can't charge. And we're happy to have them. They're taxpayers. Happy to serve their kids for as long as they love.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Christine? Show on mute.
Does she know?
Still can't hear you.
Now,
We got you. I heard
We can
you.
hear you. We just heard you saying complain there.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Okay, so I couldn't hear you, so I had to unplug some things from my computer. So I think one of the things I unplugged was my speaker. I apologize. So, well, shoot, now I forgot my question. Oh, so I don't know if it was in an email to me or in public emails, but I saw some community members express worry about whether it was that they had changed to responsive or whether they had changed to virtual. But in any case, that their kids were going to have different teachers in the spring. And so I was just curious about the possibility of some sort of jumpstart conference that teachers might be able to have with families. I know that teachers are meeting with other teachers about kids to share information, but I wondered if teachers could have some meetings with families again of new kids.
Yeah, we'll, that's a great idea. I'll explore that with kind of the team tomorrow and see. Some kind of connection would certainly be a benefit to those communities and those situations. So it's a good idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Joel? All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yeah, between that and then obviously the photographs of what was going on in terms of around the schools, that was also very good to see in terms of we're making through all of this, we're still managing to make progress and everything else as well. All right, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve consent agenda items 5.02, 5.03, 5.04, 5.05, 5.06, 5.07, 5.08, 5.09, and 5.10.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Thank you. Anybody opposed? And any abstentions? Thank you very much. I will entertain a motion to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing property.
A motion to move into executive session for the purpose of discussing topic.
A second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Addison?
Yes.
Dell?
Yes.
Clendenin?
Amy?
I said yes.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Keller?
Yes.
Ms. Quinn?
Yes.
Juan?
Yes.
Mr. Allen?
Yes. Been called worse.
Okay, we are recessed into executive session.
We're gonna venture down to a classroom.
And no, you don't get 2 votes.
Okay.